Summer camp, a familiar sight to most of us. Remember the feeling of leaving home and normal routines to rough it for the first time in natural surroundings? Playing old games, learning new ones, making friends and sharing your camp experiences with them, creating memories that will last a lifetime. This is Camp Bloomfield, located in a wooded valley near the beach in Malibu, California. The anticipation and excitement begins the moment the buses arrive. You wonder, how many rules are there? What'll happen if I can't swim? Will I get homesick? And what's the food going to taste like? Oh, boy, I hope Mom packed everything. It's all a part of the camp experience, but you don't have time to worry. You've got to sign in, get your cabin assignments, and become acquainted with your counselors. Summer camp has begun. To many of these young people, Camp Bloomfield looks like this. To others, the camp sounds like this. You know, if you were to visit Camp Bloomfield, you probably wouldn't notice anything different at first. I mean, the kids here act just like kids at any other camp. There's only one difference. The kids here at Camp Bloomfield are either blind or they're deaf. That's Norm Kaplan, the founder and director of the camp. 31 years ago, he originated the idea of the camp, and he established its philosophy. Being blind or deaf is an inconvenience, but not a handicap. At most, it's a limitation. And everyone has limitations of one sort or another. And many limitations are much worse than not being able to see or hear. You see, what they've created here is an environment where kids can experience a normal camp situation. The counselors develop the attitude that it is normal to have an impairment. So, there is nothing to hold these kids back from achieving whatever they want. Now, in doing this, the kids come to realize that there's nothing they cannot do if they want it and they're willing to work for it. As you can see, communication is open here. The kids can talk to their counselors like friends, solving problems and gaining the confidence to handle responsibility for themselves, both here at camp and in the outside world. You know, you can't help but feel proud of the kids and staff here at Camp Bloomfield. I must admit that after meeting them, I'm a little prejudiced. You know, I really believe that these kids experience a camp more fully than non-impaired children. They utilize all of their available senses to really feel their environment. I'm Mclean Stevenson. In the next few minutes, you'll get a chance to meet some of these remarkable young people, and I think you'll find it as inspirational as I did.
Good morning, Camp Bloomfield. Rise and shine.
Morning comes early here at Camp Bloomfield, but it has to. The schedule is packed full every day. Each morning begins with a warm-up period of exercise to loosen muscles, awaken the mind, and get the campers and counselors ready for the day's activities. This carefully designed program of exercise was created not only to develop strength, but also give new physical awareness and coordination. It also creates an appetite, and the kids don't need any coaxing when breakfast is announced. You know, it's important to start the day with a good breakfast. Well, that's not a problem here. Cooks, waiters, and staff serve up 3 balanced meals every day. This, by the way, is the sign that's used for daily announcements. It's like having living subtitles for the hearing impaired kids. It's one way to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on. Hey, Adam, how was breakfast this morning?
It's really great this morning.
Really great?
Yeah.
Well, I might just give the old cream chipped beef a shot. You know, to a sightless child, water can be a terrifying thing. Removing the senses that they've learned to depend on takes time and patience. But with encouragement and a lot of love, campers soon realize that it's easy to conquer their fears and discover the fun of swimming. The program includes expert instruction in swimming, life saving, and water safety. And by the end of camp, the kids are as fully qualified in basic and advanced swimming as kids from any other camp. It's just a short bus ride from the camp down to the local beach. Now, for those of us who live near the ocean, we tend to take it for granted. But the Bloomfield kids come from all over the place, and many have never experienced an ocean before. An old parachute creates a new game, a billowing cloud that kids can play in. A volleyball or a long piece of rope for a traditional tug-of-war provides more fun in the sand. But all day long, the anticipation has been growing, waiting for the moment that the counselor announces, "Everybody in the water." You know, to an impaired child who's never touched the warm sand or felt the waves pushing against the shore, tasted the brine or smelled the sea, this is a banquet to the senses. You know, there's two bodies of water that are very important to Camp Bloomfield. There's the Pacific Ocean, which is right over the hill, and of course there's a swimming pool. But there is a third. And that's the old fishing hole right here. You know, I've seen kids come down here with nothing more than an old hot dog on the end of a safety pin and come up with a real good-sized fish. Come down here and kind of relax and commune with nature. You never know what you're going to catch because there's all kinds of fish in here. It's a great place for the kids to come. Counselors come down here. I've even seen Norm Kaplan steal down here in the middle of the night and try his hand at fishing. No, sir, you never know what you're going to get. It's fun.
Hey, McLean,
You can have... Huh?
will you do me a favor?
What?
Will you please be quiet? I'm trying to catch some fish.
I'm sorry. Oh, I know what you're saying. Archery at a camp for blind kids? Well, remember, being blind is an inconvenience, not a handicap. The archery range here at Camp Bloomfield is a prime example of how this philosophy works.
Put your left arm straight. Left arm straight. Okay, now pull back. Farther. All right! Good job, you got it!
Horses have a certain magical quality for kids. I don't know, maybe it was the Western. The hero galloping to the rescue, riding off into the sunset with a pretty girl, whatever. Anyway, when you put a youngster on a horse, well, that child's imagination just runs wild. It's no different for the visually impaired or the hearing impaired kids. And here at Camp Bloomfield, the stables are always busy. But before the campers mount up for their first ride, they take the time to familiarize themselves with the animal.
Just like your hair over here.
Imagine that you've never seen a horse before. You recognize the sounds, but you never touched the thick muscles or bristling hair. You've never felt the hot breath or realized the size of these animals.
Use your other hand.
You've never anticipated the power and strength that you will control. Finally, cautiously, you climb onto the saddle. It's a little frightening at first, but almost instantly, the apprehension turns to affection. And another fantasy has become a reality for a child. Well, it's almost time for lunch, and we've still got a lot more to see. So, like the sign says, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, sports fans, we have finally come to a game which I modestly call myself an expert. Golf. As a matter of fact, I play to about a 7 handicap.
Wait a minute, McLean.
What?
Nobody here has a handicap.
Right. Poor choice of words. Well, look, all I want to do is share some of my expertise with you guys and give you some golf pointers.
Gee, that'd be great.
Okay, now, the important thing in golf is to be relaxed and to stay comfortable. Now, when you address the ball, you have your feet comfortably placed, obviously on the ground. You have your grip. You bend your knees slightly as you bend over, and it's important to keep your head down, and even more important, you've got to keep your eyes on the ball.
Wait a minute, McLean.
What?
It doesn't matter if you can see the ball.
All right, what would you suggest?
Well, why don't we blindfold you, okay? And then you can try it.
That's a great idea. You can even use my scarf.
Yeah, that is a great idea, Jill. But I want to ask you guys something. How, if you put this blindfold on me, am I supposed to see and be able to hit the ball?
Here's the expert.
Just aim at the sound.
Well, how was that shot?
Well, not bad for a beginner.
Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. I didn't even come close. Okay, you try it. Now, you take that, Peggy. Take the blindfold, and Jill, you can stay right where you are. Richard, give me the ball. All right, now, I put the club there. You got the, right there. There's the ball.
Okay.
Okay? Now, you may not do too good this first time, but don't get discouraged, okay? Remember, keep your head down. Here's the ball, and just a nice slow swing. Hey, Richard, you know what?
What?
You just made a hole in one.
Oh, boy.
Well, it's more than beginner's luck. I guess my golfing tips really paid off, huh?
Excuse me.
Do you mind if we play through?
Hey, better yet, why don't you make it a foursome? If you need any golfing tips, ask Richard. You know, until you put yourself in their shoes, you can't really realize just how impressive these kids' accomplishments are. Overcoming your impairments is all a matter of attitude. And these kids have the right attitude. This attitude is obvious as the kids prepare for the camp's special events, like the annual carnival. It isn't just the kids who have a great attitude, though. Executive Director Norm Kaplan has gathered a terrific staff of talented, caring individuals who not only have the ability to work with impaired children, but help create the positive atmosphere that makes Camp Bloomfield unique. John Levy and Peggy Cummings, assistant camp directors, have been developing this program for over a decade. In the camp, I've noticed that the blind child and the deaf child have been integrated into the various programs. How's this working out?
It's working out really well. At first, we weren't too sure how it would work, and when we were first serving the deaf children, we didn't know their particular needs at that time. But over the years that we've been serving both groups, we've found that they really get along quite well, and a number of the blind kids have picked up sign language. In fact, we've had a totally blind counselor go into speech therapy for the deaf.
That's great.
Also, the deaf kids react to the blind kids as hearing people. It's fantastic for them. It really is.
This is Stacy Powers, assistant director of the Foundation for the Junior Blind. I wanted to know how impaired children vary from non-impaired children.
Kids are kids, and we do not treat our kids. I think a lot of times people that work with blind people make the biggest mistake by treating them to be blind. Our philosophy is they're kids first. Their hearing impairment, their visual impairment, really is secondary. And if you work with kids and they respect you, they know that, you can play around with them and be part of their buddy, but that you also have their respect, and they know that when you ask them to do something, they're like any kids. They really do want to be told. And I think just gaining their respect and knowing that you truly believe. It's like the kids with Norman. These kids would do anything for Norman because they know that Norman truly loves them very dearly, and there wasn't anything that he wouldn't do for them.
I'm amazed that in what I've seen here and at the foundation, that these you treat these kids as individuals, not as handicapped people.
They're not. First and foremost, they're individuals and they're kids. And we're not expert with blind kids or deaf kids, or I certainly don't feel that we are, but we are pretty good experts with handling kids. And what we have here at camp, or what we have here at the foundation, is if we took in 700 young people from the neighborhood, we would be doing the same things. There's nothing special here. For blind kids, we have a different type of archery target, but the archery is the same. We play baseball by sound rather than sight, but the game's the same.
I know you don't like this. I know you get no federal funds, and you don't want them. Right. This entire program that you're doing costs a lot of money. And you haven't taken a nickel from the government. You have one program, I think, for adults that's funded partially by the state.
Yeah.
But notwithstanding that, this has all come from private donations and gifts.
Right.
Now, how do you do that, Norman?
Well, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of people I call 9 feet tall, little people 9 feet tall, who send us $1, $2, $3, $5, $10, a few that contribute more, who believe in our young people, believe in what they can do, and who believe in us and keep us going.
I'll tell you one thing else that you've got that beats any camp I've ever seen or been to. I tell you, you got more love per square foot here than any place I've ever seen in my life.
That's the magic word, love. Our counselors are full of it. All of us are full of love for our youngsters and for each other. We can leave the rest of the world behind here and come down into camp, and it's our own little world where we can love one another and be friends and be peaceful.
Well, you sure got it. Well, it's the last day of camp. And to many of these kids, it's the most important day of the year, because today the awards are given out. In the afternoon, the individual achievement awards are presented to the campers who have earned everything from best personality to best street climber. Later this evening, the top honors will be given out at the campfire. After the presentation, while others were packing and preparing to return home, I had the opportunity to sit and talk with several of the Bloomfield kids. Their honesty and frankness opened my eyes and ears.
One time at college, I was it was my first day, and I was sitting there. Across the room, there was this girl across the room, and I didn't know it because I was just working on my stenotype machine. I really wasn't paying much attention except to what I was doing, and I was staring straight ahead. All this for the first 3 days, I was staring at this girl. And she thought I was some kind of a pervert or something. She just didn't know what I was staring at. And she didn't know I was blind. Until one day, I decided to leave the school and go out to lunch. I took my cane out of my briefcase.
Was she disappointed that you weren't a person?
I don't know.
That brings which leads us into a very nifty transition. What about sex?
Uh-oh.
What about
What about
it? I'm very serious about this.
Okay.
And if you don't want to talk about it,
No, it's fine. People have misconceptions about
Yeah,
it.
they really do.
They really do.
I know when I was 15, 16, 17, it was a problem for me. Is it a different kind of a problem for you?
No way.
I don't think so.
Yeah?
I'm thinking me.
Let's talk about Joe. Maybe you'll feel better. All right. What?
Some things like they sound like a guy or something maybe will, you know how like guys like flirt with their eyes, and people who are visually handicapped can't see that, and they think, what a snob, you know, they're not even looking at me.
In a way where it's normal for us is we still have the pressures, you know, if we find somebody and start getting serious, there's always the pressures, there's always, you know, the same problems that everybody else has.
Yeah.
I think getting to know, what's the word? Getting to know the opposite gender is the most difficult part, you know.
The last campfire of the year is always an emotional time. I talked with some of the camp's award winners. You can read my lips.
A little bit, yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
We have a silver spoon.
Can you